See, this is my life. It always will be. There's nothing else. Just us. And the cameras. And those wonderful people out there in the dark.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Out There in the Dark. My name is Tom Alexander, and I'm here with Azed Majid. Say hello, Azed.
Azed couldn't make it today. My name is Bill. How's it going? I'm gonna do this for the whole show. I just
We just lost 32,000 listeners
that we never had.
that we never
had. Yes, hello. It's me, Azed Majid, and Tom Alexander. That's right. That's the two of us.
Well, the first thing I wanted to do was, folks, I watched a couple of episodes of a really, really cool, really good TV show, and maybe, AZ, you can talk about it a little bit.
Severance is a good show, I have to say. I really enjoyed it. No. He's referring to my new show.
Yes.
Which I wrote and directed and a lot of other things. That is just airing tomorrow night, which is March 30th. 2025. It's starting tomorrow night. There's a six-part series called Emerge. And I got the idea. You want me to tell you how I got the idea?
Yeah, please tell us how you got the idea.
So I got the idea for this series when I had to go to the emergency room one day. This was like maybe 10 years ago. And I had some weird, vague, probably anxiety, but whatever, this weird stomach thing that I couldn't figure out. Anyway, it was very busy that day. And so what they did was they make you wait and wait to see a doctor, wait to see the nurse. And then they tell you, go to area B. And, you go to area B and you sit there. And then the people that you were with in area A start showing up. And, now you're all waiting in area B. And then they tell you, okay, well, we go to area C, right? And same thing. And at a certain point, I just thought to myself, wow, this is what hell would be like. Just constantly waiting in these waiting rooms with these sick people who you keep seeing over and over again, and it never ends. And that's the basis of the show. Basically, it's really a story about a writer who, just has his first big success, apparently. And then, goes to a party to celebrate that, has a kind of maybe a drug experience or something happens to him, and he has this, he thinks he's having a heart attack. He gets taken to a hospital, but it's no ordinary hospital. And it's very spooky, all kinds of stuff happens to him.
Oh, the style is really great. I mean, it's got color schemes and the visuals are nightmarish and surreal.
Oh, geez, that means a lot coming from a bona fide critic like you, Tom.
Bona fide critic.
You are a bona fide critic.
Think David Lynch and Lars von Trier and
you were mentioning that it reminded you a little bit of that Lars von Trier show, The Kingdom.
Yeah.
Which I never thought about, but I have seen a bit of that show, and now that you mention it, it does kind of resonate.
And of course, Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, a lot of Grey's Anatomy. I'm like the new Shonda Rhimes.
Zach Braff makes a cameo at some point. So.
It's also available for anybody who's interested on an app called Viva, Viva, which it's streaming on there. So I think you can get a free trial for like a week if you just want to check out the episodes. But it's called Emerge, and on TLN, which is in Canada only right now. But if you want to watch it on Viva, if you're somewhere else in the world, go check it out.
Yeah, and that's 2 episodes. The first 2 episodes airing tomorrow, Sunday, March 30th.
Yep.
What time?
Starts at 9, the first episode, second episode at 10. And then the following Sunday, another 2 episodes, and April 13th will be the final 2.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks for the shameless plug.
Hey, you know what? My pleasure.
Okay.
It's great. It's worth watching, folks. But today we're going to talk about somebody we recently lost. One of the greatest actors to ever grace the screen, Gene Hackman, who passed away February 18th this year.
Yeah, it was a very sad and strange, came out of nowhere kind of thing where Gene Hackman and his wife, who was a classical pianist, both died in their house. and I think everybody's heard about this. It was just a
Yeah.
mysterious, strange kind of thing where I don't know, Tom. You seem to know a little bit more about it, but
Well, they couldn't
what's the
figure out-
latest? Yeah.
Well, I mean, we don't. I don't want to get too much into this. We want to talk about his life, career, and his films. But for those who don't know, his wife had gotten quite sick with something called a hantavirus. She degenerated rapidly and died in the house. Gene Hackman, who had not only serious heart problems but advanced Alzheimer's,
Yeah.
then passed away a week later. Presumably, he was alone in the house. He may or may not have even known if his wife was dead.
Right.
And I'm guessing probably didn't take his medication for his heart.
Yeah.
And may also have starved. So
Yeah.
and then it was quite some days, maybe a week. I'm not sure, but
They were
after-
already in already states of decomposition.
They were already,
I know.
and
Yeah.
mummification. So
Yeah.
so really, really tragic. Certainly no way for anybody to go, let alone one of the absolute greatest artists who we've ever seen on screen.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine text me and say, "See, see, you can be the biggest, greatest actor and all this stuff, and this is how you end up." I was like, "Thanks for that uplifting message, friend."
What's
But
the point? I think we all know anything can happen to any of us.
I know,
anytime.
I
mean,
know.
come on.
But yeah, we're not going to talk too much about his death. We're going to sort of focus more on his career and his absolutely amazing career.
I mean, 40 plus years of incredible performances across the board.
Yeah, and just some he was. I mean, we can talk about. We'll get into his biography a little bit, but just a statement from me is that even if he made a lot of movies, he made some really bad ones for sure, but he was so good in everything I've ever seen him in. Like even in the lesser kind of quality films, he was always great, right? Like something like Superman, let's take, right? I've never seen a better villain than his villain in Superman.
Lex Luthor.
The Lex
Superman's
Luthor.
a good movie, but yeah.
Yeah, goodish.
No, it is.
Yeah,
It's good.
goodish.
It's a lot of fun.
But
But he's fun.
made
He's
great by
great.
him,
Yeah,
by
yeah.
his
Valerie
Miss
Perrine.
Schumacher,
Well, you had him, Valerie Perrine, right?
Yeah.
Like it was a really
and
great.
Ned Beatty, right?
Yeah, Oh my God, Ned Beatty was
Yeah.
great. We could do a whole episode on Ned Beatty.
Yeah,
one day.
it's true.
No, I think Superman's it's an interesting film. It doesn't always work, but it's fun. It holds up. I rewatched it a couple of years ago.
Okay, well, I'll take your word for
Take my
that
word
one.
for
I
it.
didn't like it from the beginning,
All right,
but okay.
whatever. Anyway.
So let's talk a little bit about Gene Hackman. Do you want to start with a biography, or do you want to start with just impressions about what we both think of him?
I don't think we know a lot about him. He was a World War II veteran.
Yeah.
He lied about his age, and he joined the army when he was 16 years old. Always wanted to be an actor, so he eventually did Broadway shows, I think, in New York, and then started acting in television in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Small parts, bit parts in movies. And I think his first credited role was in a film called Lilith in the mid-60s.
Warren Beatty, Gene Seberg, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I
haven't seen it.
But I've seen it. Yeah, it takes place in an asylum, right? In a mental institution.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But, I mean, his career really took off with Arthur Penn's Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah.
Where he played Clyde Barrow's brother, Buck Barrow, who helps him on his little bank robbing spree and murder spree. He's married to Estelle Parsons. She won the Oscar for supporting actress in that, and she's fantastic.
Yeah, she is.
I mean, look, it's. I rewatched Bonnie and Clyde a week or so ago, and wow, this is a very modern movie. I could not believe that this was made in 1967.
Yeah, I mean, it's like yes, absolutely. It's like it's very influenced by the new wave stuff. Like it's got some very new kind of like things in there, like the barbecue, like the family picnic scene.
Yeah,
which is like a dream.
Yeah, it doesn't seem real.
Doesn't seem real.
When I saw it when I was a kid, I thought it was a fantasy sequence.
It feels like a fantasy for sure. Yeah, it's just incredible. Like the yeah, you're right. It totally holds up, and everybody from that movie is so great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I didn't know was that him and Dustin Hoffman were really good friends, and they lived together. I think in the 50s or in the early
something
60s.
like that.
Yeah,
like
and they both
beginning
went
of
to,
the careers.
they both went to the same. I think it was a Meisner style acting school, and they both were considered the worst.
That's true.
Yeah. Apparently, Gene Hackman was told by his teacher that he would, that he was the worst. He could never be an actor. And apparently, like, when he was doing odd jobs, kind of like all artists have to do, right? Apparently he was a doorman at one point, and one of his former teachers came up to him and said, I told you would never amount to anything.
Yeah. Nice guy.
Yeah. But
Thanks, Teach.
but it showed that he was in his. I think I read somewhere, or he said, in my mind, it made me resolve to prove them wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I love that kind of spirit in people where they know they've got talent, but it's so new. His style of acting was so kind of different that it took time for the industry to catch up with him. Right.
It was so common too with so many great actors who languish in Hollywood for like, years or decades before they make it. Like we talked about, I think Naomi Watts, whose life was mirroring that of her character in Mulholland Drive.
Yeah.
Until she got Mulholland Drive.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting too because, let's, you said Bonnie and Clyde was his sort of first major exposure. But his big moment where he became a massive superstar was The French Connection, right? Which was a couple of years later, I think, right?
Yep, 4 years later.
Yeah, and I rewatched The French Connection recently, and holy shit.
Yeah.
It's great. Like, I always thought, oh, yeah, French Connection, and yeah, I get it, and it's obviously every police drama that came after that stole from The French Connection, right? So it's hard to kind of look at it with fresh eyes, but first of all, it's got incredible cinematography. Like, it's like a documentary almost, like it's got that, everything is shot with like, what do you call it? Like a telephoto lens. So everything's very flat, and
grainy.
2D and grainy. And it's New York in the 70s when it was really, the city was almost dead, right?
The Midnight Cowboy, New York. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's incredible just as a time capsule to watch it, right? But the performance of Gene Hackman in that movie it sort of sets the stage for him going forward, right?
Yeah.
He's not a good guy.
He's the ultimate anti-hero.
He's the anti-hero, right? Because he's racist. He says, he's obviously lawless in many ways.
Yeah.
That typical kind of, which would become exemplified by like, Dirty Harry later, But like, he's not that extreme as Popeye
He's not
Doyle.
a cartoon character. He's based on a real person.
Yeah, he's based on a real person. But he's definitely a problematic character. You don't really know him, right? Because you don't really get. It's a very economical film in that way, where it's just about what it's about. About this drug this drug connection from Europe, or how they're bringing the drugs over in cars in the in the side panels there, and the thing under the floorboard panels, right?
I looked everywhere for those drugs, except the rocker panels.
Yeah, except that.
What the hell is that, Herb?
Yeah, stupid Herb.
Picking your feet in Poughkeepsie? Anyway.
Yeah, he's got a big problem with people picking their feet. Yeah.
In Poughkeepsie.
In Poughkeepsie, yeah. But let's talk about that performance. What I understand watching it recently, what makes it so special is how believable that guy is. Like, the major thing about acting, and this is one thing that you'll hear like, directors say to actors, and I've said it myself, right? And it's like, I don't believe it, right? Because you can say the right words, get the right emotion, even do a good job, right? But believability is something else, right? It means you have to kind of believe it, So it's a deeper kind of acting. Like it's all in, right? Yeah. There's no phoning in. There's no moment where you feel like that doesn't.
He's
seem
like
right.
that. That's sort of a hallmark. I mean, I think Hackman in all of his performances, and going right back to Bonnie and Clyde, is this everyman kind of persona.
Yeah,
like we could all be like Gene Hackman. He's not a gorgeous guy.
He's not the smartest guy.
He's not the smartest guy. He's got later on he got heavier. As we all do. So, you know, you identify with him, and he's relatable. So he's not a dirty Harry super cop
Yeah.
in this thing. He's not like, he's this angry, not schlubby, but like he can run. Boy, can he run.
I know. There's so much running in this movie.
Like, see French Connection too. There's even more running.
Wow.
And but it's so multifaceted. You like him even though you shouldn't like him.
That's his calling card. I
Yeah.
think he often played villains, right? Or like kind of corrupted individuals. I'm thinking like No Way Out or
Right. Unforgiven.
or Superman or Unforgiven, or even like that one with Sharon Stone. He plays another sadistic sheriff in that one.
Right.
With
Quick and the Dead.
Yeah, Quick and the Dead, and even in something like, which is one of my all-time favorites, like something like Royal Tenenbaums, like he's not playing a good guy necessarily. Like he turns into a good guy, I guess.
But you can't help but like him because he's Gene Hackman.
Because he's charming, right?
That's what he does. He's
Yeah.
he's very, very charming, but with a world weariness as well.
Yeah.
That's really exemplified in another Arthur Penn film called Night Moves, which I saw for the first time about 2 days ago, and where he's this like hangdog, private eye, kind of like,
Living on a boat, right?
he's not living on a boat, but he's married,
Right.
but he's depressed.
Right.
And we can talk about that later. But French Connection, he's sort of that kind of person. He's charismatic, he's magnetic,
Yeah.
but he's he's racist, blowhard. Where did you watch the film?
I watched it on
Disney Plus,
Yeah, I can't remember, one of the streaming
right? Because
services.
they censor it.
Did they censor it?
They did.
Oh.
I don't tell.
Was it because of the N word?
Yeah, it's the N word.
Okay.
Yeah. Which-
Right. Yeah. Okay, I remember in the original he says the N word.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, which we can talk about that another time.
Yeah.
Whether that's a good thing or not, but
But the movie itself too, like Hackman is incredible, well deserving of his Oscar. But the movie is so gritty. It's not Oscar bait, even though it won a bunch of Academy Awards.
It did,
It is tough. The car chase is probably the greatest car chase sequence.
I would definitely recommend people watch it, because people might say, like, might think, oh, today people would go, oh, I've seen this a billion times, and you have. But in a way, this is about Friedkin, but I mean, in a way, it's like, even though it's familiar territory, it's done in a way that is still seems kind of fresh, right?
Yeah.
Because you are kind of looking at this guy. And this is the thing about Hackman. He was, like you said, an everyman, and he was also like a tough guy, but he wasn't like you said, like he wasn't a cartoon. He was like a guy who had gripes, right?
Soulful too.
Yeah, soulful and a full on human being, right? And that's hard to play, right? Like if you're thinking about a character, right? I'm trying to think, like his next big thing after French Connection was he did.
Well, The Conversation was a few years later.
Yeah. He did a few other movies in between.
Poseidon Adventure.
Poseidon Adventure was the big one, which I'm sure people thought, like, oh, what a sellout, But,
I don't know.
I
awesome.
mean, those were. I'm sure he wanted to make some money. He did. Look,
He's
he's a working actor, right?
Yeah.
This guy was never in it for the celebrity, the fame, the accolades, because he never did
the
awards. He never went on talk shows that much, and he seemed like a very shy and kind of like to himself person. And we were talking earlier, and you were mentioning John Ford was kind of similar, and it seemed like there was that kind of guy
cut from the same cloth.
Yeah, kind of a guy who was kind of a little bit embarrassed to be involved in the arts. You know what I mean? Even though they were great artists, they didn't like the glitz and the glamour aspect of the whole thing.
I mean, Ford was a Republican. That's the difference.
Yeah. I mean, luckily Gene Hackman was a liberal. But my point being that that kind of thing, like, it almost seems to be completely missing from acting today.
Yeah.
Today
or filmmakers. Yeah.
Today you have actors who, get on the internet, become famous by whatever, and they think that they can act now, right? And I had this experience working with some young actors during my directing my series, where I had to say to them, if you haven't had any theater experience at all, if you haven't stood in front of on a stage in front of an audience and bombed, then you're not an actor yet, right? You have to be able to have those skills. Like a couple of the actors that I worked with, they had come up through theater. And you see the difference, right?
Yeah.
And today you don't have this kind of actor anymore. Maybe if you do a few of them, right? But you have these people who just think they want to get into it because it's a quick way to, if you're beautiful or if you're like,
you're an influencer.
You're an influencer, or if you can fake it, you can kind of, But that's what I was talking about with believability, right? You cannot fake believability. No. And so let's talk about The Conversation, was his next movie, which I rewatched just last night, and wow, what a fucking amazing film that is. I forgot how again, strange. It's also very like ahead of its time in terms of its style and its sort of construction and its character. Let's talk a little bit about his character, because I think it's
a strange Hackman performance.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he has a lot of subtlety. That's part of what the everyman charm is.
Yeah.
But he is so repressed and so subtle in The Conversation.
Yeah.
Like he's such a closed off character.
It's
very hard to relate to him.
Yeah. Although you do, because you're in his head.
Yeah.
You know that he's kind of it becomes revealed over time that like he's had this bad experience in the past, very similar to French Connection, right? Where through his work previously somebody died, and he's very afraid that he tries to do this thing where it's like, I just do the surveillance, I just do the sound, and then I give the tapes to whoever, and then what they do with it is none of my business. Mm-hmm. But this time he can't get himself out of feeling implicated. And he knows there's going to be a murder, right? Because he's heard it, so he tries to stop it, or do something about it. But he's the last to know what's really kind of actually going on, which is interesting, right? Yeah,
I mean, it's and it doesn't really feel like a Coppola film. It's directed by Francis Ford Coppola. He tossed it off in between, The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2.
Yeah.
I'll just make this little perfect movie.
Yeah.
And it feels more like an Alan J. Pakula film or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Coppola's
like a parallax view type thing. Yeah.
Like Coppola's a very operatic director normally.
Yeah.
With, huge style and mise en scène. But this one is a very tight, closed off kind of film.
It is. It's like a smaller film for him. Yeah. And it does. It does seem more like it seems a little influenced by like Antonioni, who was very big in those days, right? Mm-hmm. Like he did Zabriskie Point.
That's
and
right.
The
Passenger.
And that kind of look, where there's a kind of like flatness to everything, and
but as that post Watergate paranoia feeling, because as it goes on you start realizing that all these other side characters are somehow, if not directly involved, tangentially involved.
And there's these
like the Alan Garfield character.
Right. He's got the
John Cazale.
He's got the other surveillance company. Right. And the John Cazale character, who plays his Gene Hackman's partner in work. But he never shares with him anything, and they never talk, and he's just very much like treats him like garbage, right? So he leaves. And that's an interesting thing, because like there's a parallel in that movie between because Terry Garr plays his sort of love interest.
The beginning.
But it's like, again, she keeps saying, I want to know you. I want to know, where do you work and stuff. And he's just like, nah, I'm not answering. I don't feel like answering any more questions, right? So he's very secretive, very manipulative, very to himself, very very emotionally cut off. And
I thought it was interesting that his character is a devout Catholic.
He won't break open his Mother Mary statuette to check for a bug at one point.
But I think that speaks to the guilt and this rigorous discipline that he has.
He knows he's doing wrong by proxy, so to speak, right?
Exactly.
It's sort of like that saying, all it takes for evil to flourish is good people doing nothing, right? And I think he feels that, a masterful performance.
And one of the greatest films of the 1970s.
Yeah, and like you really feel his anguish, like at the end there when he realizes what's actually going on.
He tears apart his apartment.
Yeah, and the way he tears apart, and just the way when he hears the stuff going on next door, and he's just holding his head, like he's just like, you really feel his turmoil, like, oh shit, you know, this guy's gonna lose it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then after the conversation, what have we got?
Well, I'm going to just very quickly riff on.
Or do you want to just talk about what we think are our favorites?
Well,
he's had like 100 films. Right?
I know. So I'm going to do a little sidebar. Not one of my favorite films, but it's related to. This is The French Connection 2.
Okay.
And I had never seen it before, and it's by John Frankenheimer. It doesn't fully work. Doesn't have the artistry that Friedkin has.
Right.
And Hackman plays the role well, but not quite with the same kind of muscular verve that he did in the first one.
Right.
But what's really interesting about French Connection 2, and it basically Hackman goes to Marseille and partners with the Marseille police force to try to track down Fernando Reyes, the drug guy, right?
Right.
And but there's lots of action of chasing and blah blah blah, but then there's this huge long stretch in the middle where Hackman is kidnapped by the drug lords and then over 3 weeks forced into heroin addiction. So the entire movie grinds to a halt while Hackman is chained to a bed and injected with heroin for 3 weeks because Fernando Rey wants to weaken him down to find out what he knows.
Right.
Turns out Hackman doesn't know anything. And so he overdoses Hackman and then dumps him off at the steps of the police station.
Right.
And then there's this other long sequence where he's in forced detox. And
Right.
it's like a whole other movie.
Wow.
Where it's this character study of somebody becoming a heroin addict and then going through detox. And it's one of the greatest performances I've ever seen Hackman give in that part of the movie.
Right.
Which is just like a study in drug addiction and withdrawal.
Right.
It's bizarre.
Wow. Yeah, I've never seen French Connection 2, so I'll
it's
watch
worth
it.
watching, but it's not great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. Like, he's always reliably good. I don't think he ever phoned in a performance in his life. I don't know. I haven't seen everything, but he also was very interested in doing different kind of projects, like, you know, some that I'm sure people have never even heard of. Like, one of my favorites, which I rewatched recently, is Nicholas Roeg's Eureka, which I don't think anybody's even heard of this movie. But, you know, I think it was like an early 80s.
Yeah, early to mid 80s.
Yeah, Nicholas Roeg, for people who don't know, was like a British director. Very, very unique style. He did Don't Look Now and Performance, Insignificance, a bunch of movies. And if you watch them, Bad Timing, which is another good one, they have very associative, very the cutting and the way that things associate to each other are very like Eisensteinian, almost like, you know, like a
Right.
montage.
I haven't seen Eureka myself. I want.
So Eureka is a fantastic performance, and it's a good movie. I would say it's a flawed movie, but it's I love it. Right?
Yeah.
You know, and it's all about this guy, this prospector, right? Played by Gene Hackman, who is on this 15-year journey to find gold, right? And he strikes gold, and then the movie fast forwards like 30 years or whatever, where he's older, his daughter is Teresa Russell, and he's like this he lives on an island. He's this extremely wealthy, isolated guy. And but he's, he keeps saying this thing over the entire movie. It's repeated. He'll say to people, "I never made a nickel off another man's sweat," right? And that's his whole. He's like a fierce individualist, where everything is his, and he owns it, and it's his, including his daughter, including his wife, including people around him, right? So, it's a fantastic performance. It's almost like very relevant for our times right now.
For sure.
Yeah,
Wow.
and you see this character as a kind of crazy guy, but also a guy with like understandable reasons for being that way, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing about Hackman. He can even make a crazy person like you realize this is a crazy guy. who's destroying everything and himself and everything, because he could never live up to that moment of eureka again, right? And the way he's trying to do it is through controlling as much as he can and whatever, but he's really sort of like looking to die in some very weird way. So who can play that character, you know, where the threads of his despair are in there, even as he's being cruel and weird and whatever. Yeah. It's a fantastic performance.
Yeah, I watched a few more obscure Gene Hackman films too. Downhill Racer.
Oh yeah,
where he plays a ski. The lead is Robert Redford. As a professional skier.
Is that a Michael?
It's Michael Ritchie's first film.
Yeah, Michael Ritchie was an interesting guy. We should do a show about him sometime.
Yeah. So Hackman is a ski coach in a very small part. He's fine, but you know, and the movie doesn't totally work, but it's definitely interesting. And another film was I Never Sang for My Father.
I never saw that one.
Yeah.
He was nominated for that.
Yeah, he was great. Actually, as great as Hackman is, he's not the best performance in the film because he plays the son of Melvin Douglas.
Right.
And so they have this terribly antagonistic relationship.
Right. Father-son relationship.
Yeah. And but the movie was like Melvin Douglas, Estelle Parsons again.
Right.
Who's absolutely incredible. Of course, Hackman's good, but it's an interesting film.
Right.
There's a Western in the mid-'70s called Bite the Bullet.
Yeah.
By Richard Brooks.
Right.
Hackman's fine. Like it's a pretty like strong, tough guy, you know, but with a heart of gold.
Right.
As they do this race across the Western.
Right. Well,
landscape.
I think one of the most telling things he did in his career, which I think was a brilliant move for him, was to do Young Frankenstein, where he plays the blind
greatest
man. You know,
it's like
he's so, and that's the thing. You know, what you notice about him is he's always a little funny. You know what I mean? Like even in his serious roles, there's a sarcasm to his characters often, or a kind of weird world weariness that kind of lends a kind of laissez-faire, sort of humorous approach.
He's got a little line like, he's like, I was going to make espresso.
Yeah.
Even there's a line in French Connection too, because they manipulate Hackman to bring him over because he's the only person who knows what Fernando Rey looks like.
Right.
So at one point he shows up and the French guy's like, is that him? And he's like, who do you think it looks like? Henry Kissinger?
Well, even in French Connection 1, in that brutal scene where they go into the the black bar and they lining everybody up. But at the end, it's really funny. As he's walking out, he stops by a woman and he goes, "Get that hair done." Yeah, so
and it's ad libs, right?
Yeah, I think he was funny. Like I think he was a funny.
I was going to make espresso line. He just tossed off. Like at the end of the scene was just ending, and the monster runs away. But then he shouted out on, I was going to make espresso.
That's hilarious. Yeah, and it is such a hilarious.
It's the best cameo.
Yeah. Because, that's the other thing about him is he was both like a tough guy looking guy, but he was also very innocent looking, right? Mm-hmm. He had almost like a baby face at times, right? Yeah. And so he could be very likable, just straight up likable, but he could also play the worst villain.
He's a really chameleon. I never sang for my father. He plays a college professor.
Right.
Right? He's wearing a lot of sweaters and stuff. And,
yeah. Well, I mean, even in, I don't know, a lesser known movie, which was not a great movie, but it's very funny at times. It's called Heartbreakers. Do you know that one?
I think so.
Where he plays like the love interest of Sigourney Weaver and Jennifer Love Hewitt, and they're like this mother-daughter grifter team. Okay. And they're going after him because he's like a tobacco magnate, but he smokes like constantly.
Wow.
And he's like just this like hilarious, like barely audible yellow finger guy.
In Twice in a Lifetime, he plays a steelworker.
Right.
Who has an affair anyway, he has an affair on his wife with the slightly younger woman.
So, I mean, there's that. And then I'm just going to, I think, the best way for me to discuss his career, for me personally, is just to kind of talk about the movies I liked, really loved with him. So I already mentioned Eureka, obviously The Conversation, obviously Bonnie and Clyde, those are all, everybody loves that one. But for me, I also think one of his strongest performances was Royal Tenenbaums, right? Mm-hmm. And I go back and forth on Royal Tenenbaums. I still think it's a great film. It's a flawed movie for sure, but his performance in that is probably one of the greatest performances ever. Right,
one of his very best performances.
Like he can make you cry.
Yeah.
Just in the way he does that ending when he says "I know," when Ben Stiller says "I've had a tough year."
I meant to rewatch it.
Yeah, well, I've seen it a few times, and his performance is great. He's a selfish,
very manipulative,
elitist, kind of like living like a rich man when he doesn't have any money. He's a grifter and a con man, but he's a loving figure who brings vitality. The interesting thing about that movie, and it's true about him as an actor, is that he always brings something intangible, like a vitality, a kind of excitement.
Yeah.
To you as the viewer, you're interested to watch this guy.
Very alive actor, like always very like present, very magnetic.
Yeah, but deeper than that. Even it's not just that he's exciting, right? Because he's not. Surfacely, he's not like Marlon Brando, where you're like, oh, look at that gorgeous hunk of man. You know what I mean? It's like
he's also like an incredible
Yeah, he was, but I mean, I don't think that he was better than Gene Hackman, right? I just think he was better looking than Gene Hackman.
I mean, how do you compare? But yeah.
Yeah, but I think that played a large role in it, right?
Sure.
And and I think Hackman. Obviously Hackman is a legend and an icon, right? And that speaks to all the cynicism that people have about acting, which is like, oh, it's just like who you're sleeping with, or who you know, or if talent doesn't matter. It's like, well, if you're that talented and you really take it that seriously, you're that dedicated to your craft, you're going to get somewhere, right? Because
I agree.
Because there's very few people who are that good.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not a big fan of Royal Tenenbaums, but no doubt, I mean, but part of my problem is that the Gene Hackman scenes are the best scenes in the film, and he's in half the movie basically. So
yeah, I can understand that. I can.
So I spent most of the time, and I have such a big aversion to Luke Wilson that it's just like I'm just waiting for him to get off screen and put Hackman back in front of the camera through the whole movie.
Wow,
so
that's interesting.
I don't know.
Because I would almost think it would be Owen, though. It would be more annoying because he's got that that way of talking.
He's close.
Yeah.
So I'm not a huge fan of that particular movie, but wow, yeah, Hackman is really great.
Yeah. So I love his performance in that. I really like his performance in No Way Out, which is the Kevin Costner film, which is a good movie.
It is a good movie.
It's actually one of the better of those kind of espionage government movies.
haven't seen it since it came out, but I remember because who directed it? Was it
Roger Donaldson?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was really good. Absolute Power was
that one I haven't seen.
I remember that one being really good too.
Right. And then there's the
better than most of the, as you say, better than most of that crap.
Yeah.
Probably because of Gene Hackman.
Yeah, like his senator character is really, really, really venal and awful, right? And then he was also in was he in Crimson Tide? Crimson Tide. Yeah, that one was also pretty good. It was pretty good. He often played that
prolific.
He kind of got a little sidetracked into the villainous, character, right? After I think Superman, right? Like they would often put him in a role where he was either a corrupt guy or a bad guy, right? So I'm trying to think what other my favorites of his are. You know what? I should actually call up these movies because they're
while you do that, I'm going to talk about one that's now one of my favorites that I had only just seen was Night Moves, which I mentioned earlier. And Night Moves is this like noir kind of like sun-dappled sleazy noir. Hackman is a private investigator looking for the teenage daughter of this has-been actress,
right?
And it leads him into this whole web of fraud and theft and murder and stuff that he just gets in way over his head. And it is one of the most nihilistic movies I've ever seen, and that's in a good way.
That was a Robin Wood favorite.
Yeah. And this is also directed by Arthur Penn. Arthur Penn coming off of like Bonnie and Clyde, and then Alice's Restaurant, which was like a counterculture milestone, and then Little Big Man, which is an incredible film.
I
too.
love Little Big
Yeah.
Man. Yeah,
And then Night Moves, which didn't get quite as good reviews and did
it's
poor
kind of
box
it
office.
disappeared.
It
you know?
disappeared because it's a hard movie. It's very strangely paced.
Disappeared faster than a Palestinian student supporter.
Oh boy.
There you go.
And then it's got the most bleakest ending, but it's beautifully done. I mean, and Hackman plays this world-weary ex-professional football player who is just, kind of had it with the world. His wife's cheating on him, and he's on this like terrible case. So I highly recommend it, but don't watch it while you're depressed.
Yeah, and I think he also I remember seeing this movie, but I remember people making a big deal about it at the time. Was Hoosiers.
I never saw Hoosiers,
where he played an alcoholic, and it was. I remember his performance being good. It's a sports movie, right? He was also in Woody Allen's Another Woman.
Yep.
Which is like a Bergman persona kind of
Yeah.
thing. Not bad.
Well, one movie I rewatched this because I hadn't seen it since it came out, and I didn't like it then, and I still don't like it much. Mississippi Burning.
It's a
highly problematic film.
It's too overwrought. Well,
there's a lot of problems with it. That's one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was good in it. Yes.
Well, not only was he good, but him and Willem Dafoe, who's the more straight-laced FBI agent, and they're investigating the true life murders of these 3 civil rights activists. Right. They make a great pair because he's like a good old boy Mississippi guy, and he's a straight-laced, Chicago kind of guy.
FBI guy, yeah.
And together they try to solve the problem. And what's interesting about the film is that they almost make it worse when they get there investigating, because then all the racist KKK guys start terrorizing more people in the black communities.
Yeah.
But it's another white savior narrative.
It is.
And all of the black characters are only victims. There's no personalities to any of them.
Yeah.
And, to the point where even the families of the 3 civil rights activists, they hated the movie.
Yeah, I didn't care for the movie either, but I liked his performance in it.
There's things I like about the movie.
And I like Willem Dafoe's performance too.
I mean, it's beautifully shot and everything's fine, but it's
Alan Parker.
Alan Parker is like,
he's pretty.
He's the guy.
Miss, yeah.
When you can't get Ridley Scott or Tony Scott, you got Alan Parker.
You can't even get Tony Scott. Okay, call up Alan Parker.
But so for me, Night Moves really blew me away. But quite frankly, my favorites are French Connection and.
The only other one that I would mention that I think is very few people know about this movie as well, but it's really, really strong movie called Scarecrow.
I wanted to see that.
Yeah, Scarecrow is a movie with Gene Hackman and Al Pacino, 1973. Very few people know about this movie, and it's not an easy movie. It's like they basically play homeless guys who are like old school, almost like hobos, like traveling,
ride the rails kind of guys,
and but they're like a team, like they're where there's a status difference, right? So the Gene Hackman is obviously more of the kind of like the leader,
right?
And Al Pacino is kind of like the Lenny, it's like the Lenny and George kind of thing. And it's a very, very good movie. It's very fun, but it's also very sad, right?
Yeah, I've always wanted to see it. And Hackman said that this was his favorite character that he ever played of all time.
Yeah, I remember hearing that. And somebody else said that it was one of their favorite movies too recently.
Yeah, I gotta find it. It was on my list. I don't know why I chose to rewatch Mississippi Burning instead of Scarecrow or Eureka.
Because you wanted to cringe. It's a cringe.
I wanted to go back and, I revisit a lot. I revisit movies I love, and I revisit movies I didn't like at all.
Yeah, sometimes I do that too, for sure. And then, of course, there's the famous one where he won the second Academy Award. It was Unforgiven, which I was going to watch with Ishmael because he has never seen it, but I didn't feel like watching Unforgiven again. I'd watched it already a couple of times.
Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times, and it's great. I mean, it's one of the best westerns of this modern period, I would say.
It's a really strong movie, and he is great in it.
Oh my God!
Yeah, he's so evil.
Yeah.
And that's about it. I mean, there was a lot of other movies he did. He was, he had smaller parts in like The Birdcage, which was really good.
Was it? I don't remember liking the Birdcage.
I like the Birdcage.
Okay.
It's Elaine May. She wrote that.
Okay.
Yeah. And Mike Nichols directed it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But he did that. I think he had a small part in Reds. He was in.
Reds is a good film.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember. I haven't seen it in forever, but I remember liking it. And no, I mean, he always made the movie better than it would have been without him.
Yeah, and it's just sad when somebody with that kind of dedication to the craft is gone, because I don't really see, there's not that many people like who eschew the spotlight, because they're into the craft of acting,
Yeah.
And I read one of his co-actor, no, I'm not going to remember who it is, who said that he always, no matter what the script was, it was a director, I'm sure, talking about it, said no matter what the script was, no matter what the scene was, he always found a way to solve the problem. Mm-hmm. So for him, acting was like an attempt to solve an issue. Like, why is this guy doing? Like, he would dissect a character in the sense of, okay, why would somebody do this? What's their motive? Of course they say what's their motivation. Everybody does that. But he really, really did that, right? And when he was doing Scarecrow, I know him and Al Pacino lived as homeless people for like a number of weeks, right?
Yeah.
They were those kinds of actors without being precious or, hatefully pretentious about I'm going to lose 300 pounds, like Christian Bale or something, which is,
Sullivan's Travels. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you want them, he kept it to himself, but he was able to deliver on comedies,
everything,
villain, love interest, whatever it was, right?
There are great actors who once in a while just give a performance that's off the mark. Like we can find performances by Pacino and De Niro that are terrible,
and Marlon Brando. Yeah,
but Hackman never stopped, and I think there's a real elegance to his retirement, where at one point, he just was like, okay, I'm done,
and he started to write novels. I'm sure don't know anything about those, but
just for fun.
Yeah, and he kind of like lived out his. He was very into architecture as well, and he designed his own house, but he also designed other houses.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was really into it. Like apparently there are 10 homes that he's designed.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it seemed like that's the other thing. Like he seemed to be quietly intelligent as a person,
very
right?
much so. If you see him in interviews, like I sent you I don't know if you watched. I sent you an interview where he talks about Popeye Doyle, French Connection.
I watched
and
that.
He's extremely insightful.
Yeah,
on his own, on this character and Friedkin.
It's funny, like I working with actors myself is sort of a newish thing for me, but I know that the best actors are similar to the way like a good critical theory person would approach a text, right? Really deconstructing the text, the meaning, the characters, the motivations, the psychology,
right.
The smarter you are, and it's smart, I don't mean like you have to have a super high IQ. I just mean the more interested you are in characters and people, in story, in what the story's getting across, the better an actor you're going to be, usually, right? And he was that kind of guy, because I've met other actors who just kind of like hit their mark and bark, as they say, right? Like just like, here's your, whatever, and that's the believability thing, right? Like it's a lot, like especially now we're so advanced as watchers, right? Mm-hmm. That it's hard for us to believe things when people act and they don't put their all into it.
And now we've got AI, so
there's that. Yeah.
Well, it's like special effects too, right? I mean, we all now CG is everything, and when we watch something that's an older film that is all real. I mean, I was watching Mississippi Burning, and there's a lot of burning in the movie. A lot of things are set on fire, and I was watching it going, I've seen all these other movies today where things are burning, and they don't look like this.
Right.
Like, they don't look this powerful and this horrific.
Yeah.
Because they're CG.
Well, I mean, it doesn't even have to be old CG. I just watched
No.
Mickey 17.
Oh, CG today is
Mickey
worse than it was 10
17,
years
I watched
ago.
and I was like, there were times where I was like, man, I could do better on After Effects.
There are special effects today, visual effects, CG effects are worse than they were 10 years ago. I don't know why.
Yeah, they're more graphic-y or something.
Oh, they're terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
I don't like it. It's so bad that it takes you right out of the movie.
I
right?
rewatched Life of Pi, the Ang Lee film,
Yeah.
like last year sometime, and I couldn't believe how amazing those effects were. And now we watch CG animals in movies all the time,
Yeah.
and they're just terrible. And
Yeah.
this one, it was flawless.
Well, that's the
I couldn't
difference.
believe it.
Yeah, because that's the difference between an auteur and a director, right?
Well, apparently the effects house went out of business.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So whatever that means.
You got a deal or bargain basement prices?
It's just really too bad. Maybe it's rushed production schedules or rushed post-production
could be.
schedules. I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, there's a lot more to talk about. I mean, I don't know how much we want to get into that, but I mean, he was also very much emblematic of the 70s. The 70s were a very interesting time in cinema, and I think many people have argued, and many people are saying that the 70s was the last golden age of cinema, right? I don't know whether I fully agree with that, but I can understand the point because there was a lot of stuff happening in cinema then,
especially Hollywood cinema.
Yeah. Well, there was because Hollywood was becoming more, less of a studio system, obviously, and more of a kind of just funding for independence, right?
Well, a lot of these independent films, like all the films we talked about with Gene Hackman, these are all studio films.
Yeah,
and studios were taking bigger chances, and they had almost like auteur producers.
They
like
did.
Robert Evans,
and Sherry Lansing, and
So and then Michael Cimino screwed the pooch.
It was all
Cimino's fault. It was all Cimino's fault.
Yeah.
So
because of that brilliant movie he made called Heaven's
I've
Gate.
never seen Heaven's Gate.
What?
I know. I got to see it.
Okay, next time it plays anywhere, I'll take you to see it.
Promise?
Yeah, I do
great.
promise.
Thank you.
But no food or anything.
But
just the movie.
And you had these maverick like filmmakers and actors. Jenna Rollins, John Cassavetes, Hal Ashby.
So great. Yeah, Hal Ashby. Even what we were talking about, Michael Ritchie, who was considered a really interesting director. Like he did a great movie called Smile, which is great. Robert Altman.
Yeah. We'll talk about Arthur Penn.
Yeah, like great, like very radical.
Not to mention, and then we haven't mentioned the big Coppola, Spielberg, Woody Allen.
Yeah. Scorsese.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Guy, yeah. I mean, that was the last time you had like an array of, and it's not the same as today because now you may have like a same number of like famous directors, but they all seem to be working out of some separate thing, right?
Yeah.
Whereas there seemed to be a group kind of quality to the De Palma, Scorsese.
Yeah, they were all friends.
They were all friends. Spielberg, all those guys. Lucas. They all worked on each other's movies and helped each other out. And they were all. It was the second wave after the initial studio films of the 50s, 40s. Mm-hmm. These were the students now, right?
Yeah.
Who studied cinema in schools and went to film schools and read French theory and they were now filmmakers, right?
And foreign language films were doing huge box office in the United States in the 70s.
Yeah.
You could have like an Ingmar Bergman film would open and it'd be lined up down the block.
Yeah, become a hit.
It was a huge hit. Fellini,
because people didn't, because we didn't have the idiots
so
running the world like we do now, where there was actually like a desire to see foreign films, and it's I'm sure for a lot of people it just gave you some cachet when you went to a party, right? But
that's good enough.
It's good enough. I'd rather that, even if that's your reason, it's like there was a better kind of film out there.
As a distributor of many foreign language films in Canada, I bemoaned how difficult it is.
Now, is the tariff thing going to affect you guys in any way?
I don't think so.
No?
Well, except overall economic and the dollar, but
like maybe the canisters, the films come in now.
Yeah, that's right.
Because
they come in canisters.
They come in canisters still, right? Okay, well, maybe Elon will interrupt your digital streaming.
Maybe we'll all go backwards and turn into anyway. Luddites.
You didn't even finish that joke. Okay. That's where we're at. Okay,
yeah.
rest in peace, Gene Hackman. You were one of the greatest. And anybody out there who's looking to
nobody
watch
like
stuff,
you today. Yeah.
Yeah, just keep, just watch some of the ones we've mentioned today. Definitely the conversation is available. It's on the Criterion channel right now. Eureka is on Prime.
Yeah.
Which you told me about.
You can watch. Bonnie and Clyde. You probably have to rent. I don't know if it's anywhere, but if you're a
Unforgiven is
if
available.
you're a newbie, French Connections and part 1 and 2 are both on Disney Plus. But they're all worth seeking out. Night Moves. Criterion just put out a 4K and Blu-ray release. That's how I watched it.
Okay.
So that just came out on Tuesday. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well. I guess that's it.
That's it. I guess
we're talking
a little bit of news, I suppose. We are working on a website.
Yes, we are.
So
I think we're going to launch in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So I'll let you know.
Because we hired Bill Gates for it, and he kind of works slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a fool.
He is. Yeah. We keep have to check his.
We have to keep bringing him.
And so we're thinking, and for our next one, we may take a look at another great maverick from the old days was Roger Corman.
Yeah, one of the all-time.
Whose career we all think of as being, the schlocky, quick
B-film, C-film, D-film. Yeah.
But his influence is overpowering.
Everybody we mentioned came out of his.
Yeah.
His B-film, C-film,
and he did a lot of things you don't even know he did.
And he was a good filmmaker. He made a few really good movies.
I
actually love Roger Corman, and
Me too.
I my dream is to have that same kind of company. You know what I mean? To have that company of maverick filmmakers who work together on shoestring budgets and throw out shit. That's the most romantic and brilliant way to do it. Nobody wants to go to Hollywood. You do it because who's not going to do it? But this is the real filmmaking guy, right? So yeah, Roger Corman next. Other than that, I don't know. There's nothing else to say except watch my show.
Watch Emerge. Watch Gene
Emerge.
Hackman films, and we'll see you out there in the dark.